I got mine going too. Certain things can't speed up, Don.
No, unfortunately not.
I wonder if the speeds are different at
It's
at
slow.
noon
Oh, no,
versus
it's slow
8:30.
at noon, of course, because everybody's.
Is that true? Because more people are on? Are we in the green room?
For sure. I believe we are.
Let's double check.
At noontime.
Looking like we're good.
All right.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a really special episode of the Green Room today. We have a special guest who is live in the Ukraine. I know leading up to today, we've had several episodes about Ukraine, and a girl in our office, Zoya, her mom just came over from Ukraine last week. We had to get her through about 4 different countries to get her over here. But today we have a special guest. He's local. He's a photographer from Bradenton, Alan Mestel. He's a documentary photographer as well as portrait, and he is live in the Ukraine. So Alan, I am going to turn it over to you. We want to hear, what have you seen? What's your story? Why did you go over? And it's an honor that you're there. And thank you for going over. And
how did you get there, Alan? I mean, could you just decide right now to go to Ukraine? What's the process to even get there?
Well, just to clarify, I'm actually on the Polish side of. I'm right at the border. I'm on the border in a Polish town called Medyka, which is the major. It's the major border crossing between Ukraine and Poland, and this is the choke point for the refugees. This is where most of those 1.2 million refugees that have come into Poland from the Ukraine have come from, so I've spent my time here, day 4, basically photographing at the border, photographing the refugee influx at the border, photographing the refugee centers that have sprung up in the local towns around here, and photographing. I spent some time at the railway station in Primotil, photographing. I mean, just this incredible scene at these railway stations, which are crowded with people, trains coming from Ukraine, unloading people, and then trains being sent to elsewhere in Poland. And I mean, I've just never seen such a chaotic experiences. These hundreds, I don't know, at least hundreds, maybe thousands of people on these platforms, both coming and going. It's been pretty overwhelming and definitely unique. But I mean,
how did it come about that you got the assignment to go there, Alan, or is this something?
You see, for the last few years, I mean, I have a studio in Bradenton on Florida Boulevard, and that's sort of how I make my living. But I have, for the last few years, just been passionately photographing for human rights and social justice organizations, and just sometimes on assignment, sometimes just for myself. I've been to, I spent a lot of time at the Mexico-US border. I photographed migrant camps in northern Mexico. I spent 5 days in Matamoros when the migrants that were looking to, the asylum seekers were returned to Mexico by the Trump administration to live for days, weeks, months, sometimes years in just the most horrendous conditions under tarps, waiting for these credible fear hearings at the border, which were cursory at best. They were brought in front of a judge who wasn't even there on video feed from El Paso in a tent court, and usually summarily denied and returned back to wherever they came from. That's a whole other segment. Trust me.
No, but
anyway,
the point is you've seen the hopelessness and the fear, right, and everything else that can go in to being in this type of circumstance. You've seen it before.
Absolutely. And this is actually a really critical point. And one of the biggest contrasts I saw was the difference, the night and day, black and white, enormous difference between the way these refugees are being treated, being welcomed, versus how migrants essentially fleeing exactly the same circumstances, war, violence, poverty, being treated at the U.S. border.
And we've
In
heard
this
that
case, the
story,
response
like
has
from
been,
Syria, from Afghanis, we've heard those stories. So it's interesting that you see such a different parallel between the two groups. Can I ask you on a personal level, do you think it's why? If you can answer, I mean, that's a kind of a difficult question.
why? Racism,
Is it
xenophobia,
race? Yeah.
white nationalism. I mean, there's some sort of virus spreading worldwide at the moment where a certain minority of people in liberal democracies are pining for some idealized golden age that they think is gone, but probably never even existed. Where some sort of 1950s nuclear family, predominantly white, predominantly Christian.
Well, listen, we do live in
Society.
Florida, Alan, all of us. So we all live it.
Yeah,
And we know, listen, we
behind
always
enemy
went through the
lines,
legislative session.
Did you
Yeah.
see? Did
Yeah.
you happen to see, because you're taking photographs, did you happen to see there was a lot of accusations on between Ukraine, Poland, Romania about racism? So were you seeing Black people and brown people from Asia, people from Africa coming also on the trains? Because there was a lot of accusations of blatant discrimination against those people. Did you see any of that? Not to dwell on that.
I didn't.
Topic.
I have heard of it. I did hear about it, but I can tell you that that I actually didn't see anyone that didn't look anything other than ethnically Slav on the trains. It was very, very much, So I can't speak to that. It wouldn't surprise me, unfortunately, because racism isn't a disease that's confined to the United States.
No.
I think what strikes me, Alan, that I see is the fear and the uncertainty of these evacuees that literally 4 weeks ago were living their normal lives. And I will say this, that when I asked Zoya, who's our gal that works with us here in the clinic, she never thought that the Russians were going to come in like that.
No, and you heard that from a lot of
you
Ukrainians.
did. You heard that from a lot of Ukrainians. Nobody thought that this could ever happen.
And did you speak to anybody? I know you're a photographer. You did speak. So what is the main? What are they saying?
Well, there's this. Most of the people literally look shell-shocked. It's like they're really. It's a cognitive dissonance that I'm seeing. There's this just disbelief that this has happened, because it's not as though these people were living in Syria or the Middle East or somewhere else where war, where violence is sort of part of the fabric of their existence.
Right.
Palestine. They were living in a very, very different headspace. They were living a very, very normal. I mean, they are the ethnic and family ties, linguistically, they're close. They're brothers to Russia. I mean, Ukraine and Russia are literally, they're first cousins. I mean, they're, if not siblings. So to think of this kind of this violence unleashed upon them, for no provocation whatsoever, other than whatever provocation, Putin is his grievance that he's felt for the last 30 years over the collapse of the Soviet Union and the collapse of Russia's imperial greatness, that has been festering in his mind, and I think has probably been exacerbated by the isolation that he's been experiencing for the last couple of years with COVID. I think just reached a boiling point.
That was the point that I wanted to make.
This is not Russia. This is Putin.
That was the point that I wanted to make, Alan, was the difference in the southern migration that you saw down at the southern border. was more of a chronic type of migration, right? Brought upon by years of economic misfortune and gang, type of violence and things like that in Central America and Guatemala and a lot of the places where those immigrants are coming from. This was so acute and so, as you said, literally a shell-shocked community that you're seeing come across the border now. But and you've already related that, and I'm sure that there may be a couple stories that you can relate to. But tell us about the Poles and the other countries surrounding Ukraine right now, and their welcoming attitude, and how difficult that must be to assume the literally millions of migrants right now. So just tell us about the efforts that you've seen.
The effort has been nothing like I've ever experienced before, and I've been in situations where where I've dealt with refugees and migrants, but this has been the international effort. I mean, if I can paint a picture for you, I mean, I have pictures, but let me paint it for you anyway. The migrants come across the border at Medica. They can come by car, by bus, by foot. They walk out of into the Polish side of the border, and they're literally met by what it looks like a market of everything that they could possibly need. There's a line of tents lining this path that they have to walk down that has, I mean, they're immediately given food. The kids are given toys. They're given, and literally they're just being handed bags full of necessities, hygiene products, clothing. They've actually stopped asking for donations for clothing because there's this field filled with boxes of donated clothing that the volunteers are trying to search through but I have met people from literally all over the world who have just gotten on planes, come over here, and it's everything from major nonprofits and some of the ones you've seen here, like the World Central Kitchen, which I've seen at every I've seen everywhere where I've been, where there's been distressed populations. Shelter Box, Doctors Without Borders. There's another organization, the Israeli Doctors, Rescuers Without Borders. Just an enormous amount, and right down to literally small local organizations, community organizations have come here with a tent and a frying pan and are cooking pierogies. It's really quite something to behold. And they're being the migrants are then sort of those who haven't made any arrangements to meet family members or whomever are being just loaded onto buses, and they're being taken to other places in Poland where by the army. The Polish army has been amazing. I mean, they're running this camp. They're helping migrants with they're carrying all their baggage, their luggage. There's one young female Polish soldier. I've seen her. I tried to speak to her, but she doesn't speak any English. Every time I see her, she's holding a baby. And today, actually, I was down at the border, and she literally snatched this baby out of the arms of one of the soldiers, like a male soldier who was playing with it. It's amazing to see.
Awesome.
So when people get on the trains or whatever transportation that they have, does it take a ticket at this point? Actually, do you have to purchase a ticket? These are the logistical things that I got it.
No,
we over here don't really understand. Are people able to withdraw money?
Their ticket to everything is a Ukrainian passport. That literally, there's one of the
all of Europe.
Have people been able to access money before they leave? I mean, do they leave Ukraine?
I asked one young girl who had left. She had left a town in eastern Ukraine that's actually surrounded right now called Sumy, and she's 19 years old. She's traveling by herself. She was studying to be a translator. She spoke perfect English, and I met her just standing there charging. There's a cell phone charging station there, and I was talking to her. She had made her way all the way to Medica by herself. She's now traveling with strangers. They sort of, and she's going to Italy. She was on her way to Italy. She was waiting for a ride to Italy, where she has a sister and an aunt. But she has been able to access her bank account, in Ukraine. Clearly, I mean, obviously, she doesn't know what the future holds for her. She's going to figure out how she's going to live from this point on. But she has been able to access money. Certainly, at this point, honestly, they, at least in this initial transition period, at least here in Medica, which is the only thing that this is the only border crossing I've had eyes on myself. They don't need money. I mean, they're literally they're turning down help more than they're accepting. There's so much available. So it's really, I'm just blown away by the international response. I've spoken to doctors, U.S. doctors. Today, I was talking to two women. One is a cardiologist from Southern California. She's a young woman who came over here. She's working with the Israeli organization, and she's actually two cardiologists from the U.S. And I was talking with them there. It's just.
Yeah,
and I can't say enough about.
Just shut my thing up. Doctors Without Borders. I have a quick question. Have you had a chance to speak to anybody that's crossing about what their feelings are about returning to Ukraine? And
that's the same question I was going to ask. They all want to go back, right? They
all want to go back. I mean,
yeah. In fact, it's amazing. I see there is quite a bit of. I was surprised today. I focused on the footbridge, where previously I've sort of been by the border where the vehicles were coming, but as I was watching, there's a constant stream of people coming over by foot. But there's also, not an insignificant number of people walking back. They've come, they've got some supplies, they've got some foods, clothing, whatever. They've got bags full of stuff, and not just individuals who seem to be going back, to fight or whatever, but families seem to be returning. I haven't talked to any of them. And I did ask around some of the other photojournalists, if they had any information. Nobody seems to know why it is that some people have come and then are now just walking back. We have no idea. But
have any of them spoken at all? Like, I don't know. And I know you do more photography than the journalistic side, perhaps. But were you able to talk to any of them about their thoughts about why NATO's not stepping in, or why EU isn't, why no one's helping Ukraine? Have you heard anything at all? Were they complaining and saying, I wish they'd step up?
No, and I'll tell you why. Because most of the people I've talked to have been so focused on their immediate needs that larger questions aren't really part of the conversation.
Understood.
They're very much just looking at, where am I going to sleep tonight?
Where am I going to sleep tonight?
No,
yeah,
true.
I know.
That's the immediate.
But I'll tell you, it's 95% women and children. Almost all of the men have remained behind in territory, what they call the territorial reserve. A citizen's army that they're forming to repel the Russians.
And that's the only
everybody I speak to.
Go ahead.
They are convinced that they will prevail.
They will prevail, yeah.
Ultimately.
And I think the pure sheer pride of the Ukrainian people, I think they will never give up. It's their land and they want to fight for it. So
in this rapid action world too, it's crazy to think that we're only into our fourth week, right, of this conflict, and it's happening fast. And that's why it's so hard to predict where we're going to be in 2 to 3 weeks. We've seen the attitudes change here, even in the States, where now there's 75% of people that'll say that they're for a no-fly zone now, because who can watch the genocide that's going on right now? And we've said never again. And we're watching it happen in front of our very eyes. I don't know how much longer that we can watch this, without some degree of a public outcry that may force, some further action. It's just so hard to watch 1942 in 2022.
That the Russians did shell that military base 15 miles from where we are. The blast shook the windows here in Medica. And that certainly changed the changed the attitude, the vibe, just the whole sort of atmosphere changed when the Russians were striking so close to Poland. Since that happened, today I saw column after column of Polish soldiers in battle dress marching through Przemysl. I don't know where they were going, what they were doing, but it would appear that Poland is, doing drills and
They're all doing
readying
drills.
themselves
I know
for any
because
sort
we
of
have friends
potential.
like are in Lithuania. They sit on the eastern flank because I'm Lithuanian descent, and they said same thing. Their military is all doing active drills right now.
It's so gratifying to hear of the efforts over there. We have an effort going on here as well. And I know
We
Ruta wants
do.
to say a little bit about
And
that.
we'll get that. I want that
Yeah.
at the very end.
Okay, yeah.
That we're doing.
Well,
the
yeah,
drive.
for sure.
What time is it?
Well, yeah,
we
we're,
still have time.
for sure.
Oh, okay, good. Because the other question I have is like, as far as maybe it's a little bit too political, but even amongst like the Polish people, I mean, is there a unified hatred of Putin? I mean, I assume there is. Have you sensed anything? Is there, or is it, because it's not Russia. The Russian people are, I mean, they're suppressed by their leadership. They can't, express themselves.
Yeah, there does seem to be a very much a focus on this being a Putin's war. I don't think anyone believes that the Russians as a people would ever have taken this step unless they had been led down this path by somebody who had an iron grip on the power structure and by intimidation, by fear, by propaganda, lies, being the control of the media. I mean, honestly, it's the dictator's playbook, right?
Yeah.
Be elected by democratic means, destroy the institutions that elected you, create a rubber stamp electoral process, declare yourself president for life, suppress
your
the free
opponents, take
press,
a one-way
control
ticket
of
to
media.
Siberia.
I mean, it's
Listen, you said it,
he's
Alan.
done what Hitler did and Stalin did, and
Exactly. He's no different than Hitler.
But you said it. You met the young lady who spoke perfect English at the charging station, okay, for her cell phone. So
Right.
The world is so connected now. And I wanted to ask you specifically, Alan, how can we follow your work? Where can we find your pictures?
Yeah, I can't wait to see.
Absolutely.
I post all of my work on alanmestel.com. That's ALLANMESTEL.com. You can also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Alan Mestel Photography on Instagram. Just follow me under my name on Facebook. And I'm hoping, I don't want to say anything until until I'm back. There will be there will be some media exposure
and showings. I
for the
hope
images.
you were going to do a showing and a
lovely.
lecture. It would be really great, even at like Selby Library in Sarasota.
For sure, because just the vision of being there, I'll be honest with you, it just gives me just chills to even think about the impact that you can have by sharing really what you've seen and what you've heard, and we're so appreciative of it. And just that vision of the women and the children and the strollers and the diapers, I brought in a couple props, but I just can't imagine that mass of humanity. And once again, in 2022, for all the world to see, I think that's where Putin has made his main miscalculation, is that the visuality of 2022 is different even than 40 years ago, 1982. And I just think that ultimately, let's hope that his countrymen will feel, the pain, from his poor, disastrous, genocidal decisions, and they'll take care of it within that country.
But right now, I actually, a friend of mine, he's posting regularly from friends that are in Russia, and the propaganda machines in Russia are basically, pumping through their propaganda, and it's one-sided, obviously, and they don't have a connection. And the problem is with Russia, is that if you do protest, you will be arrested or worse. And, you know, so there's a fear, like that woman, female journalist. I don't know if you saw
Wow.
that yesterday.
Talk about
She was
courage.
on, you know, the TV and she went
Oh,
behind and
absolutely. I
she
mean,
held
I
a-
posted on Facebook.
yeah, I
She's
mean,
a
it was,
hero. She's an
no, she
absolute
is.
hero.
And then she went to a prison and nobody knew where she was. So luckily her attorneys found her, but chances are she's going to disappear
Did
probably.
they? Because
eventually.
last I heard, they. Yeah.
But no, they just do away
It's
with people.
horrifying,
I
and
mean,
I
it's
admire her.
just the way I admire her too for doing what she did. But
Yep.
she knows what's gonna
It's
be
a hero.
the-
That is
yeah,
just
it's
a hero. You
yeah.
know what's gonna
stand up
happen
for
when
some-
you do
you know,
that.
you know, in Russia, you know what's gonna
Right.
happen to you. And so, and that's the thing. It's like people are always saying, like, take him down from the inside, but he's unapproachable. He lives in a bunker. The man, I mean, you see photos, his distance between himself and any human being is 20 feet. Here, what are people saying? My other question is, because right now, and I think most of the planet is rooting for Team Zelensky. So what are the Ukrainians saying about him? I mean, he's become a superhero, literally, to most of this planet. And I mean, he's one man facing, you know, the huge bear coming at him. And are they with him? Obviously, I think they probably are. But are they proud?
Of course, but honestly, they are proud of him. But the attitude is, he's Ukrainian. What else would he do? Like
What else would he
What else
do?
would he do? That's cool.
Yeah.
I don't need a ticket.
Exactly.
Bring me some.
I
bring
know,
me a
Joe. I
gun.
don't need a
Yeah,
ticket. Give me
yeah,
my
yeah.
gun.
No, I call it Team
Yeah.
Volodymyr versus Team Vladimir.
I like
Yeah,
Team Zelensky,
yeah,
the big
yeah.
Z, because the Z, and that's the other thing.
What is that Z?
Well, the Z is, I mean, it's very
Right.
Nazi-esque,
Right.
and World War II. It is
Yeah.
what it is. And so
Right.
for him going in with the Z, that's an outrage right there. Here we go with the never again. And here's the Z on the tanks flying.
So,
through
Alan,
Ukraine.
will you be going into Ukraine if you wanted to go into Ukraine? Could you go into Ukraine? What's the whole process that we go on? from there?
I had one of the humanitarian groups that was going into Ukraine that I was just talking to at the border because I wanted to go there. The woman there was the convoy of 3 vehicles, and she said, "Yeah, you can come with us." And I realized I didn't have my passport in my pocket, so she said, "Well, go get your passport, and if you can get back before we go across, you can come with us." So I ran to my car where I had my passport. By the time I came back, they'd gone. So I missed that chance.
Well, listen, we wish you all the safety, of
The
course.
last thing that my wife said to me as I walked out the door was, "Don't go to Ukraine.
Don't go to Ukraine.
If you go to
I
Ukraine,
got
don't
it.
bother coming
No,
home."
listen, we've been struck by the journalist, of course, from the Times, who, you know, has lost his life. And I heard another journalist, you know, so you know, you're at risk there, Alan. Keep your head down, and we pray for your safety, of course. And I know you'd go to Ukraine, of course. You're a journalist. You're going to chase that story. I love our journalists. It was my major as an undergrad at Ohio State, journalism communications. And believe me, Ruta will tell you, if my wife didn't have my leg tied, I might be there right there with you. It's such a tough commitment to make, but I so respect those that are there doing that hard work on the ground.
Honestly,
it's humbling.
It's an awesome thing to do. It really is. And I want to ask you a quick question because we have to wrap up our time. We have 3 more minutes. I know that you said that the outpouring and the generosity of the Polish people and everyone has been so tremendous that they're really not even needing anything. Yet we're hearing on our side, inside Ukraine, they do need things. Have you heard the same thing? And what kind of items? We just got a really generous donation from Sarasota Discount Pharmacy. Like, it was almost $90,000 worth of antibiotics and burn creams and things like that are really
the one
needed.
thing I hear. Yeah, the one thing I hear more than anything else is medications and medical supplies. That's the one thing that seems to be. But I got to tell you, there is an amazing, not just the response at the border, but the response going across the border. There is a lineup of vehicles that is dozens, if not 100 or more vehicles at the border constantly going into Ukraine. Buses packed. I don't know what they got. All I see is where there should be people, there's just boxes.
Awesome. That's what we want to hear.
Ukraine.
Because people are wondering here.
And again,
they're donating.
It's going, and it's not the government organizations or It is small individuals, small organizations, just sort of an all hands on deck. It's almost like showing my age here, but it reminds me of what it must have been like when the Brits came to rescue the army from Dunkirk. It was just small boats and everybody sort of just throwing in and doing what they could, and that's the feeling of people, individuals.
It's individual.
Well, we're going to do our
Not being willing
small
to stand
part.
by and watch this happen without doing something.
And I think that's the thing. I think right now everybody wants to do something. And for us locally, I'm going to give us a quick plug on Saturday for all of those who want to do something. From 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. We are going to be open at our clinic at the 425 Commercial Court, Suite C. We will be taking donations of items and money. Everything's going to be going to Ukraine. The money, we're going to channel it through Doctors Without Borders. As far as items, we'll take everything. If you can do medicinal.
Can you believe it, guys? This is skin staples. Okay. Like that's war. Okay. And here's diapers. Okay.
But it's just
But it just goes to show you what's needed. This is critical, everybody. And it's an honor to be able to help. Ruta's got some great connections, which have allowed us to really integrate in to the community to get this done right.
And it is, and people, the thing that you were saying, it's it's small groups, individuals, the individuals that are coming, they so want to help. And it's an outpouring, again, it's humanity, it's humanitarian efforts, it's people to people. And I think, whether, like you said, whether it's, the border here in Mexico or in Syria or in Palestine, all these areas, I mean, the outpouring of humanitarian aid is usually still the humanitarian aid. People still want to help people. And I look forward, Alan, to you coming back and meeting you live in person and going to whatever show you're going to have here to share your stories and your photos. If there's anything we can do that you think would help Ukraine and the people that are crossing over, please share it with us, because we'll spread word as much as we can. When are you coming back?
I will be back on Thursday. I have to come back with
Thursday?
some work, some paid work I have to do.
Well, it's
the
been
amount of time I spend doing,
Yeah, well, you have to pay bills
Well,
those days too. I mean, all of us do, right?
Yeah.
So I know we have to wrap up. It's been an honor and a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for going out there and taking your time to photograph history and document it, and then later to share it with all of us. And so I think, until people see things, I think majority of us are very visual. So thank you for doing that, and have a safe journey back home. For our listeners, thanks for tuning in, and please come out Saturday, bring your donations, make a difference. If you help one person, you help humanity. So Slava Ukraini.
Stay safe and healthy, everybody.
Stay
Ellen,
safe.
thank you so
Thank
much.
Alan.